La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Welcome back to La Lanterna podcast. It has been 2 weeks now that you haven't heard from us, and we really do apologize for that, right, Matt?
A little bit of a break there, which I'm mainly responsible for. So,
and we'll get right into that. But yes, thank you for everyone for your patience for us taking a break. It was much well needed because of the end of the season, even though we're kind of young. But yes, Matt, he was away on vacation. So I'm not blaming him per se, but that's the reason, the rationale.
The reason. I'm the reason.
Exactly. So it was actually, I'm not going to talk about, you can if you want to, about your whole vacation itself, but I'm going to concentrate specifically on the 4 days. So the 4-day celebration kicked off with an epic entrance, the Luigi Ferraris. This is how I picture it though, Matt. It was a full to the max and utterly memorable. In the background, loud as it can be, the full-blown orchestra was the Gradinata Nar to welcome Matt in his incredible experience.
Yes, that was all only for me. That was the only reason why it was that deafening. It was an absolutely unfucking believable experience. It was. I have to thank you again, Fabri, and for our new friend Enrico for hopping on and helping show me around there and walking up to the match. But it was something that was absolutely incredible. I remember walking towards the Ferraris and seeing the stadium in person, and then everyone's kind of queuing up outside the Gradinata, waiting to get in. Every single thing from the time like they scanned a ticket and they pretty much keep it. And it's just like, you're in, find your place. And then walking underneath that kind of little, I don't know what you call it, but like that balcony section in the lower part, and you just see like the flags draped everywhere, and all the fans are ready to go. It was. I heard some people say it was almost like a performance, like you're part of the match, and it felt like that from the beginning to the end, which was pretty amazing.
Well, actually, we had this small conversation just before the start of the podcast, where I was explaining to both yourself and Steffen, which is our great director in the background, about my experience when I first started to join and watch matches and so on when I was living in Genova. So it was a derby. So my first match was in Tribuna. So don't get throw things at me because it was not part of the Gradinata. But because of that experience, I've always wanted to go to either Distinti or Tribuna. Why, a lot of people would ask, is because I could enjoy exactly where you went to. So from the outside, I was that spectator to see you guys being the actors in the Gradinata, not doing that spectacle, incredible chants, like 90 minutes, no, beyond that. We've even seen that throughout in the second part of the championship. It's just incredible. Actually, how were your vocal cords, your breath, and after the match?
I held up just fine. I was exhausted though. It was definitely something that I wasn't necessarily fully prepared for, I think, because the entire match you're up, you're chanting. We were jumping half of the time, I think. Thankfully I wasn't waving a flag. There were a couple of women who were pretty young, I think, who were waving these like 15-foot flags during the match, and even all the way afterwards, as you guys saw some of the videos going through Genova. So I don't know how they kept it up, but everybody was pretty exhausted after that, and we all slept pretty well, I think, that night.
I'm sure. Actually, let me take advantage of this to do a couple of shout outs. So one is Elisa Montero, which usually sends me a lot of videos that a lot of times I share on my portal with Genoa Club Toronto. She's always in Gradinata Nord. While the other shout out, which is a little bit more important, was actually Enrico. So I just wanted to mention him from Suoni Sinistri. So if anyone wants to go and check him out, definitely. I think he has a podcast. Not too sure exactly what it's all about, but he was definitely that guru / mentor. Not, I don't call him mentor, but someone that actually showed up and definitely did what I was hoping that someone could be out there and guide you, help you, talk to you, and just like, be someone there you could talk to. And so how was that experience in Genova with respects to English speaking and so on?
It's funny. I don't know how I got myself in the situation. And you're right. Enrico was the absolute man. I mean, starting beforehand meeting for a coffee, getting sort of the whole background of what was going on, staying out late, getting beers at the end of the night.
Wait. Coffee or espresso?
Espresso. Yeah. To clarify.
Okay, go on.
I know. I don't know how it happened, but there were at least like 3 or 4 times where I basically got into some, I like I told you guys before, I don't know any Italian really, but I got into some Italian like cussing matches with a bunch of Sampdoria fans. I don't know what started. I can't remember what started it, but like I would say,
you can repeat it. That was the first words I heard from you in Italian. There you go.
But I would sit down and there'd be somebody across from me or something, and somehow we would start talking, and there'd be enough English or something, and somehow we'd talk about Sampdoria or Genoa, and then that would start the whole thing. And then as soon as that started going, there'd be other people like nearby who would typically, actually every time it happened, there'd be like one of each on the other side. So it'd be somebody taking my side, somebody taking the other person's side. Most of my interactions were pretty simple beyond that specific thing, but there were definitely several kind of, I broke up the Granada Nord chant a couple of times, like the Granada Nord, and I got some kind of, in some cases, derisive head shakes or some kind of grins from some of the Genoa fans. So it was good though. I mean, I thought I'd have a harder time being in a city that maybe isn't as often visited by tourists. I mean, there were a decent amount of tourists there. Obviously, it's a hugely historic city, but I made my way pretty well, and
very underrated too. You said to me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it reminded me a little bit of like Bordeaux in some ways, with like the Carigi and stuff like that. But the entire history of the city and just everything about how it's laid out was just like, I'm surprised more people don't actually go there and check it out, just because obviously,
well, that's being kind of 50-50, so half Canadian, half Italian, half Canadian, just because I was born in Italy and so on, but because I lived a lot of my life over here. What I always say when people say, well, why Genova is not so well known and so on.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at it also from a monumental perspective, starting from Rome, there's so much to see.
That's true.
And when people, and I'm talking most about people outside of Europe, because there's a little bit more chances of getting people going to Genova.
Right.
You're going to have a top list, right? Whether that is a top 5, top 3, depending on how much time you get and whatnot. What are you going to do? You're going to do Rome, you're going to do Venice, you're going to do Florence, maybe the Amalfi Coast and so on. Then you might want to go to Milan because it's the fashion / economic capital and whatnot. So Geneva is going to go a lot lower. Than a lot of people have their families, and most of them come from the small towns, maybe from Calabria, maybe from Abruzzi, maybe from I don't know, Friuli or whatever that is. So Genovese are very, very far few in between. And you're right. And I want to add, even though I shouldn't, because I should be talking about Genova, I want to add also Torino. Those are 2 beautiful cities that are in the lower of the totem pole, like of the list itself, that unfortunately are overseen. Maybe we're doing some sort of like a episode on tourism today, but right,
it's fine, whatever.
But it's definitely a place to go to. As I mentioned, also Torino. So Genova, it's one of those hidden gems that when people have a chance to go to, perhaps one of the top things that has started in the last, I'm going to say 10 years, more so for hiking and more like a less rich type of tourism itself is through the Cinque Terre.
Right.
Sometimes coming from Tuscany, then you're not going to even hit Genova, depending on so on, but it's definitely worthwhile. So, and tell me also about your experience in the bar that you were talking about before. So going through the Carugi, you can go to thousands of bars, and it's not like a bar, what we call the bar over in Italy. A bar is like your espresso bar, especially like this small locale where you go in, you can get your cappuccino in the morning, because God forbid getting a cappuccino in the afternoon or after a meal, right?
I knew as much not to do that. I that was like the only thing that I knew, like, don't get a cappuccino in the afternoon.
But remember what I told you about when you go there. So you read the Gazzetta dello Sport, you get what's I'm going to ask you, but what's the most famous colazione? I can't remember. Breakfast item that you get in Genova.
So you got to get the focaccia. You got to get some fresh focaccia somewhere, and then you go. I ended up getting one from a place near my hotel, which actually was a pretty good one. And then I walked to, I guess you call it a bar, and got a cappuccino there. And then the combo, the important part of this thing is you've got to dip the focaccia in the cappuccino, get it all the way in there while you're reading Gazzetta dello Sport, which all of this was happening, by the way. It was some bar on Via Garibaldi, so actually very kind of like...
It's a beautiful street.
Beautiful street. But it's fantastic. It's so good. It's like you have that bitter kind of taste with like the salty taste, and then
the sweet part, etc. Right?
Yeah, there's a sweet part because obviously it's cappuccino, so you get a little bit of like all that stuff. It was actually a perfect way to start the day and kind of just like slowly kind of get familiar with where I was and everything. So
Genova, all for it, you loved it. It was beautiful. It was a nice surprise. It was a nice experience. When we were chatting, when you're on your trip, you went also to the small borgo, which was a borgo, which means a small hamlet or small town that now obviously is part of the bigger city, which is called Bocca d'Asse.
Yep.
And it's like this, it used to be this small, I guess, port, but it's not even a port, like a small place like where fishermen went there and they would dock their boats there. And now it's all part of the city, obviously. And it's a very beautiful, I guess, what feelings did you get when you went there?
Yeah, Bocca d'Asse was really cool too, because it definitely was like a little bit of a different vibe. It had kind of like even a slower pace to it. I mean, you have that one little area where the beach kind of is there, and folks are kind of just relaxing around, and you've got obviously the ocean, you're right on it, all these kind of colorful buildings. You're seeing
Matt, sorry, it's not an ocean. I'm not trying to be picky.
Okay,
here. It's the sea. It's the Mediterranean
Sea. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. And most importantly, you're seeing the Genoa flags flying strong.
Right. Remember, I told you about that story, right? So why don't you tell everybody what that story is all about?
So there is this rock in Bocca d'Asse, and this is actually like the central part of the tifo of the match against Bologna too. And I think also part of the song is called Anguasto d'Amore, if I said it correctly, which is sort of related about the same story. And so these fans, I guess there's been a little bit of a battle with this. These fans, I don't know how long ago this flag was planted. Fabrizio, you'd know better than me, but it's this pretty large Genoa flag that's, commemorating all the Serie A championships and everything. And it's really firmly there. It's very visible. In fact, I think actually there's another Genoa flag flying from one of the houses that I think actually like Caspar or Danielle or somebody in the New York group who went to school with this person and they still live there and are flying the flag strong. But it sounds like there's usually some campaign every now and then from the Sampdoria fans to remove the flag, but it's never really successful. I don't know, Fabri, if I did the story justice, but it's definitely there, and it's a good reminder of the oldest club of Italy.
No, it's beautiful. I think once the other side, and I'm not going to mention that name, it was back in the 70s. Thank you, Steffen. I was thinking about that. I wasn't sure, but it was back in the 70s when they put the flag. Anyways, the other side, the bikers per se, tried to they tore it down. They put it the other one, just in a matter of minutes, they went back and put it back to what it's supposed to be. That's a hardcore area for Genoani. It's in the city, at the heart of the city almost.
Yeah.
And so that belongs to the citizens, which are Genoa fans, anyways, right? And no, it's so funny because these old sailors, former sailors, fishermen or whatnot are guiding this flag, and every time, with all the sea effects and so on, obviously it gets torn with time, and they just go there and replace it as if it was new, etc. That's just a beautiful feeling, whatnot. Pretty but cool. If I may, let's jump into why you went there. So your visit coincided with that also much hyped homecoming last game of the season, where the players had to just simply react to that overwhelming love of their fans.
Yep.
So tell us what happened.
Yeah, so the match itself, well, I'll have to be honest, I didn't see a whole hell of a lot of it from the Granada itself. I think I remember a couple of whistles at Ekuban from a really poorly controlled ball, and I think something maybe had happened earlier in the match in the first half with a different player. But it was not necessarily, for anybody that watched the match, an incredibly entertaining affair from what I could gather. The Gran Donato was in full force I've never been to a match and experienced this before, but it seemed like it was even hyped up more than normal. There definitely were lots of flares and fireworks going off in the Ferraris, and the volume never really ceased throughout the match. I think it's worth saying too, this is something that Enrico kind of mentioned to me. There were young Genoa fans all over the stadium, which I thought was a cool thing. And you saw a lot of really, really young female Genoa fans too, which was kind of an encouraging thing, I think, for the future, where there's, even in this match, I think going into it, there's sort of this thing, we're playing Bologna, we've already gone down, trying to just sort of do this with some sort of pride and not really go down in shame or anything, but really, like, the point of the match was to show that support for the side and to not let those other folks on the other side of town get in everybody's way. And I thought it was kind of remarkable, like, with all of the different things going on with Genoa going down, with this being a pretty poor campaign, with, unfortunately, our rival staying up, that you had, like, basically families taking their young children to this match and saying, you know what, this is our team and this is still going to be our tradition. And I thought that was really cool to see.
No, it's actually, I'm glad that you actually raised that, Matt. I mentioned some of that. I've heard also a lot of conversations around that at the Genoani Si Resta, our partnership podcast on the other side with the Italian side, where essentially Genoa was the team of Genova up. And what I mean by that, like, by stronghold, 80, I'm just going to put a number there just to give you the major difference. Like, I'm going to say 80-20, 70-30 at the worst, I would say, like the fanship itself, up until late 70s, early 80s, until when Mantovani came and started to do what he did, and that, bringing better results and so on. Those newer generations at that time, unfortunately, brought a lot more attention on that other, and I'm having people can't see it, but that disgust face with, like, the other side, right? But no, you're right, like, a very poor campaign. And actually, let me add something to this. So a few games back, if you remember, I mentioned it to you guys anyways, I had this fan, 70-year-old man, very polite, amazing guy from Genova. He contacted me just because he wanted to have he has a family here in Toronto, so he came over to visit his family. He said, I wanted to reach out to you because, first, I love Toronto because obviously this is all Italian, right? And I also, because I wanted something from the club. So he got the flag. No, sorry, the flag. I apologize. The scarf. And I had also post on my Twitter and Instagram page about it. Anyways, what I was trying to say is, this remarkable words that he gave to me was we are a silent fan. We are silent fans. Like Genova is full of Genoani, but we're quiet. We're quiet because right now there's nothing really too much. Not that there isn't anything, but there's nothing that is bringing them out. But as soon as, I was going to say anytime, non appena. So not as soon as something happens, the people are going to come out, and they, the other side again, are just going to be outnumbered easily without any doubt, because it's the fanship of the city. And I apologize for Sampdoria fans that are hearing this, but it's the truth. And there's nothing to there's nothing really to add to that.
Hey,
anyways,
look, all you have to do is look at I don't know if you saw on Pianeta Genoa earlier this week, but I think we outnumbered Sampdoria fans by 4,000 in attendance this year. And that's like a terrible season.
The worst campaign in what? I don't know, like in 20, 40 years? I don't know, something like insane. And since November in the last 3, and we never moved out of that, right? So I mean, that shows. And I'm glad that you saw the youth. I guess it's this enthusiasm. What that did is brought back, gathered more younger generations that are now interested in this experience, in this love affair, in this. It's almost like a religion.
Yeah. It's, as an American fan, and Enrico and I talked about this a little bit, like it's not like the exact same experience that I had growing up, at least thinking about the Grandinata specifically. American sports fans get crazy, people get super loud. Obviously the passion is still there. I don't think any of those things are necessarily different in that way, but experiencing a match in the style of the Grandinata Nord, and especially having like young kids experiencing that, I thought was like a really cool thing, because really, like, you're just out there showing your support the whole time, and you're there for that primary reason of like you're representing almost in a way. And that was kind of what underlined. Then obviously not everybody was there. The Distinti was pretty well populated during the match, and some other parts of the stadium too. But it's just cool to see, because it's a very different. It's obviously you're active the whole time. You're waving flags. You're standing up. You're not sitting down. And these kids were doing it. They were completely participant. It wasn't like they were looking up like, hey, I'm kind of bored, I want to go home and play some Nintendo or something. Like, they were all about it, which is pretty awesome.
Which is awesome. Actually, let me add something to that. That's maybe remember about something. I might be misquoted, but I think the Luigi Ferraris, which is the Genova stadium, which is named after a Genoa player, by the way. It's the only stadium that has where the fans go, called Gradinata, while all the other stadiums are called Curva. So everybody knows about the Curva A, Curva B, Curva Nord, Curva Sud, and in Genova it's called Gradinata. So Gradinata Nord or Gradinata North is where the Genoa fans reside, and it's like their home, while the Gradinata Sud, when there is a derby, that's where the Sampdoria fans go. So just wanted to mention that in the event someone did not know, or about, if they hear about this Gradinata, why? And rightfully so, Stefano mentions the dumpster. Love your that, Stefano. Okay, so yeah, the sad part is the fact that it was a loss. Unfortunately, we did not reach the third last spot, which was a hope with the last type of thing. And now it's all about restructuring, right? Actually, we're going to have a few conversations. We'll have different guests throughout the summer. We'll be talking about the transfer market and whatnot. But look at the lineup. There's only one more spot that is missing, which is the winner between Palermo and Padova, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah.
But I've already sure, when you're in Serie A, you're looking down Serie B, like if it was just like, the little league. Quite differently, I guess, in England, where Premier League is the most important, but the Championship is still looked at something interesting and whatnot.
Agreed.
And I think by others, not saying from a Genoa standpoint, Serie B this year, similarly to 2006-07, when we had Juventus, Genoa, and Napoli, is a championship that is going to be tough, super tough. They're going to be a lot. Actually, a lot of the smaller teams are afraid because they're going to say we're not going to have any chance, essentially, right? Because Genoa, is going to be the first one to be beaten. That's the first one that they're talking about. Obviously, then you're going to have Cagliari, Venezia, Benevento. Actually, no, Benevento, no.
Well, yeah. Can you believe that story?
It's incredible. Like the owner, after being shut out at the second last playoff because he was in the semifinale, I guess, and then he didn't go through because it was Pisa. I think it was one against him.
Yep, that's right.
Then obviously we know Pisa, Monza goes through, which in a way is better because
return to Berlusconi,
right? Yeah. Better for us, anyways, right?
Yes, right. Would rather have Pisa in the league.
Benevento owner goes to the mayor of Benevento, says, "Hey, here's the keys to the ownership of the team. I'm done."
Yeah, I couldn't believe that story seemed so remarkable. And I guess I don't know what their deadline is to actually apply for Serie B. And so if anybody's not familiar, there's this, I don't know if this is technically just a paperwork loophole or something, but to actually be in the league that you're playing, and you actually have to apply to be in the league. And if you don't do that by a certain date, you're not in the league. And this happens sometimes with teams that go into administration or something else where they actually cannot enter into the competition that they want to go into. And then usually you get dropped down in the league again, sometimes a couple leagues, sometimes you fall all the way out of the quote unquote football league pyramid, depending on the country that you're in. But this was news as of a couple of days ago, I think, right?
That's right. That's correct.
It's crazy.
So unless anything changes, I think the deadline, and I don't know, and I apologize for that. I think maybe it's by July 1st. I'm just putting some date there, but it's somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
If no one comes up and picks up that team, however, I guess if he gave the keys, I'm just saying keys as a metaphor, but if no one comes there and picks it up and whatnot, that means it's like if it was bankrupt, and then it's either if anybody wants to pick up with a name and whatnot, starts from the Eccellenza or Serie D, which is the fourth division down or fifth down, and then they can make their way up. No, but so and other teams are still, anyways, Pisa, Brescia, and possibly Bari, there's another one, and anyways,
Parma, of course.
Parma, there's still Parma there, absolutely. And then there's Palermo and or Padua, which is, if Palermo, we know the horsepower that Palermo can be, right?
Could be, right.
So a lot of people are actually calling Serie B this year Serie A2.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm curious, Steph, on our guest and a few's thoughts, because we saw something similar, I think, in the German division this past season, and it looks like it's going to be. I mean, it's kind of like that combination. You've got a couple of teams that are well supported enough that they should be giving us a challenge. I think probably it's us, Parma, and Cagliari that are the favorites to go back up. I think if you were to be the odds maker right now, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've got teams like Perugia or even Ascoli or these other teams that probably are not going to be an easy win. And just the fact that we're in that division and everyone's going to be scraping, everyone's probably going to want to give their best shot against us too. So it's not going to be a cakewalk by any means. It's going to be a tough season.
So I met when we were one summer celebrating the anniversary of my Genoa Club Toronto. Back then, when Perin was in Primavera, so he was in the youth squad. The second goalie was Eugenio Lamanna, and the third goalie was a Canadian guy called Robert Stillo. So I had connections, of course, with Robert Stillo, and I said, why don't you come as a guest to our, summer, whatever, Genoa Club party? And he brought as a guest, because the kids become buddies with each other, and he brought over Eugenio Lamanna. All this just to talk about Eugenio Lamanna. A lot of fans don't necessarily appreciate him because of certain performances that he had, but I still honor him as a great individual. He's like a very good guy when I spoke to him. Anyways, just all this to mention the fact that I read an article, and he was talking about Serie B based on Genoa, because probably they had an interview with him with respect. He was just newly promoted because he plays for Monza, right? But he was saying Serie B, I played in both sides, and Serie B is quite difficult because differently approach to the teams. There's way less gap. So what he was trying to say is, like, when you look at the relegation points and teams in Serie A compared to whomever is in mid-table,
right,
the gap is huge compared to what you see in Serie B. From Serie B, you can be in the mid-table, and in a couple matches after, you can be in relegation area or in the play-out area. So that just to say how competitive that the league is going to be, has always been.
Yep. Yeah, it's. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a worry, but it's going to be a very would not be a surprise, I think, for many, for us to not make it out, which is the biggest fear, right? Because like
that's the biggest fear.
Trying to go on this bigger initiative with our new ownership. We've got all these players that are coming on board. We've got some already who are saying, hey, I think we're going to stick around. I think we've seen some signs from certain players that we might see this player again. And Crescito, of course, is the most kind of prominent, who said, I'm staying with the club. But there are others.
Let me actually say something there. It's not a scoop. I shared this with my friends and the Genoani Cireste and so on. One of our members from the Genoa Club Toronto owns a restaurant, and he said a good friend of his, which owns another restaurant, he talked to my friend and said, hey, guess what? Crescito is here in my restaurant with his wife and another group of 6 people. Now, I shared that news, and then I thought afterwards, should I fix it, not fix it? Because him being in Toronto can mean different things. Doesn't mean that he's going to be leaving Genoa. Doesn't mean he's going to stay. What I'm trying to say with this is, like, he could have been there just because, I don't know, Insigne, no, he probably wouldn't have been there, but maybe just to keep the ties open for afterwards and not burn bridges and so on. He could be there because he's signing for the next season. Honestly, nothing is official, but that's the only news, is the fact that he was seen in Toronto. So yes, you're right. He did say that he's giving his availability, because I think his contract is ending 2003 in June of 2003. And he essentially said, I'm available. I'm more than willing to stay for this battle to return to Serie A as soon as possible.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We saw, I think more recently, Sylvain Hefty had made some remarks that kind of suggested that he'd be part of the team kind of fighting to go back up into Serie A, which was, I think, I'm sure for many fans, an encouraging sign. We've not every player has been saying that, and of course, in some cases, we've had players who are on loan who we probably aren't going to get back. But seeing players like that step up, it's a good thing. Of course,
we'll definitely have more conversations around that in one of our future episodes. But I think for sure, one thing I can almost guarantee, in my opinion, anyways, is that the new players that were purchased by under Spurs are most likely ones to remain. The ones that are owned by Genoa.
Right.
The ones were on loan, we already heard that several are leaving.
Yeah.
But the only one that a lot of fans are talking about now, there's rumors, of course, no surprise there, for Ostigard with Napoli or not Napoli, but we'll see. So I guess we can go for a quick commercial break. which is always important for our means, right? But and then right after we'll have a guest directly from Germany. So mind
Live
you,
from Germany.
We're recording late at night, and the guy gave us his availability for early in the morning. That means 5 a.m. Germany Eastern Central Time. That's amazing.
Hopefully,
kudos to him.
Is already cappuccinoed up.
All right, let's go to our commercial break.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back, and we have a special guest. We're actually recording late at night, but in Europe, it's actually 5:16 a.m. Our special guest is Steffen. We'll hear more from him, who he is and whatnot. And he's in Germany. And actually, let's just welcome immediately Steffen. Hey, Steffen, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks.
So, Matt, we have a guest from Europe. This is our first time that we have a guest from Europe, and someone like you, not Italian born and a Genoa fan.
I love it. Yeah, Steffen, tell me your story. What drew you to Genoa?
Okay, my my secondary school here in Mainz, we have an exchange with the German school in Genoa, so
nice.
Germanica, and usually the students are going when they are, I don't know, 15 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it was a bit different. An Italian teacher came into our class when I was, I don't know, 13 or something, and asked if someone wants to host an Italian boy for the summer for 3 weeks. And I went home and asked my parents if we can do that. And they said, yeah, fine. And then it was summer. Came to our house, and he was a big Genoano. And then when I visited him in autumn 92, it was when there were the celebrations for 500 years Cristoforo Colombo same time. I realized how big football or soccer in your case is in Genoa, and how it is to have, I think, 2 clubs in one town is even different, because in my opinion, if you ask someone from Genoa, what's your team? They have one of both teams. I don't know, in Germany, if you have only one club in the city, some people care, and the others, they don't care about football in general.
Right.
So for me, it was nice to see that, I don't know, for me, the whole city was into both football clubs.
So forgive me for the ignorance on this one, Steffen, but so you're saying that in Germany, there is no city that has more than one team?
No, Munich, they have 2 teams.
Munich have a couple.
And Hamburg, Berlin, some big cities. But I would say that you have lots of people, they don't care about both of the teams. But in Italy, in my opinion, if you are in Milan, they have one of the teams, even the women. I would say they care more about football or the teams in a city than it's in Germany. In Germany, we have many people, they don't care about football in general, or they have Bayern Munich, and So for me, I think it's different.
I could feel. I think I could sense that too. Like when I was in Genoa, there was definitely like this sort of football craze, I think, that was there. I mean, it just walking around the city, you're seeing a flag of the other team somewhere, or a sticker of the other team somewhere, or there's literally was graffiti throughout the entire city. It was either, I'm not going to mention what Sampdoria was putting up, but you saw a lot of Doria Merida tags anywhere throughout the city. And so you could tell this was very much an identity thing that maybe is
of the city, right? Of the city, of the citizens, and both females, as Steffen said, both men and women too, right?
Yeah.
So actually what's interesting, and Steffen told us, like, he's from Mainz. Am I saying that correct, Steffen?
Yes.
Mainz. And his dream actually came true. So it was interesting to hear initially your story, Steffen, where the fact that that's where you start to be a Genoa fan. And you told me that you went also to several times, or at least once anyways, to the summer retreat in Austria. And
nice.
so you went to see the team there. Is that right, Steffen?
Yeah, in Neustift I was a few years ago, and they had the training camp there.
How was the experience there?
Yeah, it was. I heard from other friends who went there before. It's like the whole village is full of Genoa supporters, and the Austrians, they really liked it when the village was full of us. And yeah, it was nice to have you see the stuff. They have a big fan shop for the people. Then you could watch them play. I think I was at a friendly match there, and yeah, it was a really nice atmosphere. So I'm not sure what they're doing this year, because I was in contact with Spors via LinkedIn, and I asked him why they're not going to Neustift anymore.
Yeah,
because I was just calling the hotel a few months ago, and I asked if
I like it.
the hotel is fully booked with the Genoa stuff, or are they even allowed tourists? And she said that they have their own house, but the rest of the hotel people can stay. But she asked the general manager of the hotel, and they said no, Genoa cancelled the trip for this year. It was, I don't know, it was in February or something. I don't know why, if the new ownership, they want to do something else. But for me, it was nice, because I think the last 15 years they went there. And yeah,
you are correct.
Same
They have confirmed that they will be going to Austria, but they also have confirmed that they will not be going to the same one. I guess it's just for change of air, change from the old ownership. I don't know why, but
yeah,
they confirmed that it's they're still going to be going to Austria somewhere. I don't know where though. And the dream that came true actually, Steffen, tell us more about what happened last summer.
Yeah, last summer it was very funny that one of my Italian friends sent me in WhatsApp that Genoa was playing in Mainz, in my hometown, where I have a season ticket for 25 years. And it was really funny for me that both teams were playing together against each other. Yeah, and it was nice to go to the stadium to meet some Genoanos. I think I didn't know anyone when I was at matches, but I met some new guys, and one of the capos there, he was writing with the capo when I was there 20 years ago, and he remembered me because when we were in Lecce away match 2003, we were going by train from Genoa.
It's a trip.
Yeah, we started Saturday evening, I think, at 8 or 10 p.m. And we were going down to Lecce, arrived there in the morning, went to the match, went back to Genoa, and I think there was a strike, a sciopero, and we arrived, I don't know, Monday morning at 10 a.m. in Genoa, and I had my Italian lesson there, so they had to wait for me. But it was it was a long trip, and it was funny because we were, I don't know, 50 supporters of Genoa going there with the train, and yeah, it was a nice experience to get to know people on this away trip.
I've never done any of those trips, so all kudos to you, Steffen, for having done that. But I've always heard stories about, it's not much about the game. Obviously it is too, but it's also the experience, the journey, the trip, the camaraderie, the having fun with the group. And as Steffen said, like there are about 50 people, and that probably, even though they were late because of the sciopero, for them probably was just like, okay, let's just have fun anyways, or sing or talk or whatever, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So what when you were sending me the messages, Steffen, then you also talked about that you went to several matches too, not only in Genova but also to other cities. So you mentioned Lecce, but you told me about also going to Milan, to Treviso, La Spezia, Monza, Salerno. So tell us more.
Yeah, the good thing was that, I don't know, 20 years ago, the low-cost airline Ryanair started to fly very cheap through Europe. So I was a student and didn't have much money, but for 50 euros, you got a return flight from Frankfurt Hahn to, I don't know, Pisa, Bergamo. And then some Sundays I was flying to Bergamo, was going by train to, I don't know, some northern Italian cities. Genoa was playing there. And then in the evening, I was flying home. So it was sometimes even cheaper than going by train to northern Germany. I was flying with the Ryanair to Italy. And for example, Treviso, we played Monday night in Serie B 20 years ago. I was flying to Treviso, had a better breakfast there, went to Venice by train because for me it was too expensive to stay directly in Venice. So I visited the city of Venice. And then the next day I went to the match, and then I was flying own. I knew some people of Genoa, but the trips I usually made alone. And yeah, it was for me nice to see some Italian cities and combined with the Genoa match. So I think I did the same Serie C playoffs in Salerno. I was flying to Naples. I visited some Roman ancient sites there, Pompeii.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was combining Pompeii with a playoff in Salerno. So I like the history, and also learned Latin at school. So for me, it was always nice to fly to Italy. And for me, the way of living in Italy, I really like it. So that's why I started to learn Italian at school, and then later on in Genoa, where I was staying for 5 weeks, I think, 19 years ago. So I really like it, and then I combined it with the cheap Ryanair flights to go there. And yeah.
That's a beautiful experience, actually.
Yeah.
I envy you for that, just because you probably went to more cities than I have. But that's fantastic, and plus, with that passion for Genoa, just adds on top of that touristic part. Just a quick question. So, did you say you were flying all the time by yourself? No other Genoa fan from your same home city?
No, I think now I know Genoano from Stuttgart. But from my city, no. I think most of the people, I think Germans, they don't have an Italian club, I would say. And the Italians here, we have many Italians living in Germany. But I think if they're from the south, they're Naples supporters.
Right.
Otherwise, I have the feeling half of the Italians are Juventus supporters. It's like half of the Germans are Bayern Munich supporters. And yeah, I think nobody cared about Genoa. Still, you don't see anyone else in the streets wearing something from Genoa. Yeah, so I was usually on my own on the trips. Yeah,
which is fantastic in a way, because definitely that makes people, I guess, turn their heads and ask questions and look more curious. But on the other half, I guess you have a special importance to be also some sort of like someone that can tell the story of what Genoa and what Genova is, like also Matt in New York, like what I do today in Toronto, like also what Stefano does in North Carolina and wherever he travels to. So I think that's also something good for our city and good for the name of our club.
Yeah.
Did you have any questions, Matt?
No, I was just going to say, similarly to that, though. I mean, I think this was something. So Steffen, I was lucky. I was at my first match actually this past week, and I was at the Bologna match. And one of the conversations that I'd had with a Genoa supporter that kind of had showed me around the stadium there was kind of like, well, what's it like being a supporter in the US versus being in Genoa? Because obviously, like you mentioned in Genoa, like you have sort of the city is kind of living and breathing this rivalry where you have fans of Genoa, you have Sampdoria fans, you have families that grew up in a certain way. You walk around, you see the colors all over the place. And it's like very much part of kind of like some social interactions you have. And I even encountered that in just talking to people. And you say you support Genoa, and either you get kind of, Vaffanculo back at each other and saying a bunch of stuff and Caso like the whole time, or you're finding somebody else who's like a Genoa fan and you're kind of bonding over that. But we talked a little bit about like what's it like being a supporter abroad and how that connection is. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. I kind of find, I know I'm not from Genoa. It's different, I think, being a Genoa fan than being a Genoa fan from Genoa and having like my identity. I'm originally grew up in Kansas City. I live in New York. Like these are all different parts of like who I am. But I think also like when you meet other people, even if you're watching a game and you're on a WhatsApp group or something else, there's still a connection. So I'm just curious to understand your experience in watching Genoa. And it's amazing you've been able to see so many games in person, but I imagine not always that's the case. And yeah, just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for me, it's it was also very special to be a Genoano.
Yeah.
Even if I don't know, I think what I wanted to say also is that Italy also changed that when I started to go to Genova and to watch games. I don't know, 25 years ago, people didn't speak English very much. Yeah. And when I started to learn Italian, I went to pharmacy and I saw the tall, blonde German guy talking Italian to them. They were ashamed that I had to speak Italian because they were elderly Italians who didn't speak English. But for me, it was nice to learn a smaller European language, and it's the easier language, I think, compared to other European languages. But it was always special and different, and they appreciate it because Genoa is a small club that someone from Germany is supporting them. And I remember, I don't know, end of the 90s, there were a school trip to Tuscany, and then on the way back, I stayed in Genoa to watch. I can't remember. I think it was Coppa Italia match or something. And then Carinata Nord, we were watching the game, and people were asking me something. And I said, sorry, I don't speak Italian. And I said, what's happening? Is someone doesn't speak Italian? Is in Carinata Nord? For them, it was, I don't know, unbelievable. And they were looking at me like I don't know, I'm an alien or something, because they didn't expect someone outside of Italy or the city watching a match in Carinata Nord.
Totally.
Yeah, it was funny. But another story I want to tell you is when I moved to Dublin 10 years ago with my ex-girlfriend. There was a Genoa community in Dublin, and we met almost every Sunday at 2 because of the 2 p.m. because of the different time zone in Dublin. We met at an Australian sports bar, and then we were, I don't know, 5 Genoa supporters, mostly Italians, and we watched together while having a tea. We were watching the matches.
A tea.
So it was the Genoa club Dublino, and it was also nice to see so many Genoa fans from from all over Europe in Dublin because of Apple, Microsoft, Google. There were many. There are still many people from all over Europe, and young people in Dublin. And for example, when there was the derby on the sports bar, they gave us the big screen, and there were, I don't know, 10 to 15 Genoa fans and maybe 5 Sampdoria fans, and it was very funny because the passionate Italians rooting for their teams, and the Irish came in and they didn't realize what's going on because they were expecting, I don't know, Premier League match or something, and it was very funny to have so many Italian supporters to watch together in this Australian sports bar. But I think they're still meeting for the matches because the owner, she knew that many Genoa supporters would come to every match. And when I came into the big pub, she said, Steffen, they're sitting there. And then I came there and there were 5 people waiting, and we watched together and talking English or sometimes Italian. Yeah, it was nice to see the Genoa community in Dublin sitting together and watching the games. Yeah, it was a nice experience when I lived there.
That's incredible. Actually, I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned before. So you said that you spoken to Spores on Twitter. So tell me more about that. Meaning, do you have a connection with him, or you just ask a simple question and he answered back to you?
Yeah, there was there's Kicker, a big German football magazine. They also have a podcast with 2 young guys, and he was there a few months ago because I think the Germans heard about him, what he's doing now in Genoa, and I think it's the first German sporting director in Serie A.
Oh,
so the Germans were interested in him because he's young and what he's doing. And in the podcast, he said that many people ask him on LinkedIn how to become a sporting director, what's he doing, and he said that he's replying the messages there. And I said, okay, I was just about the training camp Austria thing. I wanted to know what's going on because I was planning my holidays and I was thinking Austria is nice because with the little kids now, it's interesting place to visit, and that's why
it's beautiful.
Wrote him because of this. And I think if you have any questions, you can just write him and he will answer your question there as well. Yeah, but before I didn't hear about him.
Yeah, before Genoa, I wasn't very familiar with him either. I mean, I have only like a little bit of knowledge of German football. I play Comunio, and a bunch of my friends are German and they're all into it. But his name was not a name that, or Blessen's, frankly, either. Maybe Blessen had a little bit more of a background being I think he played for Stuttgart Kickers way back when.
Yeah, Stuttgart.
But they were both new names to me too.
So what do you think, Steffen, about the combination, the duo Spores and Blessen from a German perspective?
Yeah, what I've heard in the podcast is that when Spores arrived in Genoa, he had to, or he's still changing so many things. For example, he said scouting is not in Genoa, or maybe not in Serie A, a well-developed part of the clubs. So he has to do lots of things there. And for me, it sounded like it's a good step with them to improve and to go. The next step for me would be going to Serie A and staying there. And I don't know, the first 10 positions would be nice to stay there. And I have the feeling that they can change lots of things. And what I've heard before Plessin came, that the players wanted an Italian-speaking manager, not someone from abroad. Yeah. But for me, I think it's maybe nice to have now 2 Germans from outside, not not from the Italian style. People from abroad maybe have different ideas, and hopefully this brings Genoa a bit forward. And yeah, so for me, I think it's a good combination. I don't know if Blessin is a good coach. He was in Belgium before, but I think now with the transfer window, they both can have the players they want from whatever they want to play. But yeah, I think we should give them a chance. I don't know how long 777 wants to be in Serie B. Same in Germany, it's hard to go back again directly. Schalke and Werder Bremen did it. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I think we are on the right way with at least Spurs, and if Blessin, I think, get the results when he can stay. And I think, yeah, we're on the good way. And when Spurs is changing some directions in the club, yeah, I think that's good. To have.
You said that right, Steffen. Like, it takes time. Obviously, all us fans wanted the results immediately. They both came in at different times into a very difficult situation. Where not only the roster, not only the standings, not only what you also mentioned too, a lot of aspects within the management of the club are being changed. And also when 777 arrived, that's what they said too. They are going to start from the management and so on. It'll take its time. And I know we want to see results immediately. I'm the first one to say that, but I also do understand that it takes time to get results. It's not something we're so used to see. I don't know, even look at Juventus. Like, I'm not trying to do comparisons here, but they have a plan in place to do and accomplish things, but they haven't seen a Coppa the Champions League winning in so long. So things take time, and I think you're right. I think it's a good combination. I personally think that the confirmation of both Spurs and especially Blessin for next year going forwards shows consistency, something that Genoa has not seen in a long time. So it will get people scratching their head. It will get people saying, oh, that's not right, that we want Italians, because that's what they're just only used to. But I think with time, we will get something out of it. Whatever that is, definitely better than compared to before. So, yeah. So are you expecting only 1 year, you think, Steffen, or you think it's going to be something a little bit more tough? Like, how much do you know about Serie A, for example, Serie B, for example?
Yeah, I just follow Genoa, so even the other clubs in Serie A, I know the clubs, but I don't know the players anymore. I would say the whole football soccer thing with all the money and everything, it's changed so much the last years. So I'm just supporting my teams, and even in Germany, when Mainz is winning, I'm going to watch the summary of the match again. But the other matches, I don't care anymore. And then
makes sense.
I don't know. The national team is playing. The German national team is playing, and then there are some guys who are in the squad now. And I said, "What? I haven't heard this name." Yeah, they're playing for that team. I said, "Well,
okay."
Maybe I saw them playing in Mainz.
It's not.
I didn't realize. So about Serie B, I've read the names of the other clubs. I have to say there's no big club from the names. There's some names you knew from you've heard from Serie A years before. But it's not that you have to say there are 2-3 favorite teams, and they're going to win. And yeah, for us, I would say it depends on which players are staying, which players are coming. Are players coming who should stay for longer term? Then there maybe are Serie A players playing now in Serie B. So I don't know what the story will be, or I don't know, other German teams they bought just Serie B players to go up, and then you have to change again your team.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
It will be interesting to see. I don't know if you, for example, Yeboah, I don't know if he's already a Serie A player because he came from Austria. Maybe for him, Serie B, it's a good start to for Italy now, and then after 1 year of Serie B, maybe if you go up, he now is ready to play every Serie A game. We will see.
It's really funny, Steffen, you mentioned that. I was thinking about that similar thing earlier this week, where they're and Yeboah actually specifically, there are some players like him that are younger, and obviously I think he probably, you could say he's a competent Serie A player maybe already, but you almost have the experience of him being on loan while he's, don't get me wrong, like being in Serie B is a disaster. Nobody's rooting for this, but in some ways it might be good for some of our younger players to maybe get that confidence. I mean, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be an easy thing, but if he gets in a rhythm and if he really is like that reliable player, maybe that's something that can be built upon in the subsequent season, hopefully in the top division. But we'll see. I think there's a lot to still be done, and we're probably going to need a lot of sort of a veteran backbone, I think, to the team in Serie B just to get through the slog of the campaign that's ahead.
The Sports did say that. He said we're going to have young talent. They're scouting throughout all Europe and beyond, but they definitely will need more veterans, just because you need that right combination. So they did want to remark this aspect that it's not just only going to be young players.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think the January market was marked by the fact of different deficiencies with respects to perhaps, I don't know, bad word of mouth coming from the previous owner. God knows really what happened there. And, also the situation of the standings did not help the new management. So people maybe not knowing who was 777 before that, saying, okay, where am I going into? A lot of people said, well, they are the players, rightfully so, how Steffen said before, in the past 20 years ago was very different. Nowadays, we see them as mercenaries. So as long as there's money, they should be able to go anywhere. But, they also want that fame, hence not wanting to go down in Serie B, wanting to stay in Serie A. That was an example of the contract with Amiri that returned back to Leverkusen, which he was on loan, but with the right to buy him if we remained in Serie A.
Right.
But yeah, so I guess your dream came true. Genoa came to Mainz. We can only hope that Genoa comes back again. In Austria, I know they are going to go. So perhaps maybe your summer plans are still not ruined yet. Matt, did you want to ask some last questions before we wrap up?
Steffen, I was just curious if you, I know the RB Leipzig model and everything is somewhat the divisive thing in Germany. Do you see any similarities with that model and 777? I think I saw earlier this week that the former director of City Sport Group, I think or I can't remember how they call themselves, but I think he was just hired to kind of basically expand, it seems like, more networks of clubs within 777's portfolio, I guess you call it. Does this remind you of the Leipzig model, or is it different? What would your take be on it?
When Leipzig was in the German Cup final 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was lots of discussion in Germany, and the outcome was that RB Leipzig and the other Red Bull clubs, it's to promote Red Bull. They've founded football clubs, and that's a different model than any other club in Germany. Yeah. So they got lots of money from Red Bull for 777. It's like the investors from, I don't know, from other countries, Saudi Arabia or Qatar or whatever. So mostly I had the feeling, for example, in England, that people or maybe countries, Arabic countries, they had too much money, and then they're giving all the money to a football club to become famous.
Yeah.
At 777, it's a bit different, I think, because they're buying old famous clubs. They're not so good right now. I don't know what they want. Do they want money out of it? Fame? I'm not sure yet. But I was happy that not some, I don't know, Qatar-based investors came, or I think it's Chinese in Milan. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. Yeah.
If I may, Milan just got purchased from this group. I can't remember now the name. Just today, I think they announced it.
Oh, was it today?
That they bought it from, it's an American group that bought it out from Elliott. Man, so it's not a Qatar or Arab or whatnot. It's an American investment team that they own 10% in another group that owns several teams too.
Okay. Yeah, but for me at 777, I think they have an idea. They have some sporting people who have knowledge, and for me it's different. It's not like, I don't know, Americans want to buy European football clubs and they don't have any clue about it, and they're deciding some things, and the supporters don't understand it. So I have the feeling that 777 wants to explain what they're doing. They have, I think, good people there, and with boards they have someone they trust, and I think he's doing a good job. But so for me, it's maybe one of the better investors. I can't say anything yet against them, against the group. So yeah, for me, it's a better solution than other investors so far. And then we will see. For example, when Leipzig was founded a few years ago, they started, I think, in 4th or 5th league directly. They bought in another club, and then they went up, and then they played the second Bundesliga, and they had the first Bundesliga players there. So for them, they were just going directly up. The same Hoffenheim with SAP, they had lots of talented, good first Bundesliga players, and then the second league. And I don't know if 777 wants to do the same again with us next season, that they're already buying the team they want to have in 2 or 3 years in Serie A. They are already going to buy it now. So for me, it's also hard to imagine how the next season will go.
Yeah, but there's room to be I think you're right. There's room to be optimistic, and it's also not one of those kind of like plastic type environments or something where you just have this crazy injection of cash or something. And it does seem like they know what they're doing. At least they have a vision. The vision is clear. I think to Fabrizio's point earlier, the fact that there's consistency and they're not saying, we got relegated, Blessing's out of here, he sucks. Like, you just appointed this guy like 5 months ago. Like, thankfully, at least we have that. I do have to ask Steffen, just because I know it's getting early there, and you probably need to attend to your little one. But for those who can't see, I know your nickname on the Zoom, I think maybe on social too, is Steffinho. Tell us about that. Where did that come from? I love that.
It was just in the end of the 90s when the email and everything came to us. Then I've read something about Ronaldo, and I think it was a Brazilian Ronaldo, and his nickname was Ronaldinho because it's a little Ronaldo in Portuguese or in Brazilian. So I decided to use this nickname, Steffinho. And sometimes in Germany, when I go to some matches as a ground topper, for example, and they know my nickname, I've read something about you, or I don't know, 20 years ago, where you could send in photos from Photo or Super Tifo from supporters. They realized that I'm the Genoa supporter in Germany, or for the derby when I went for the derby and I made pictures, and the Germans who were interested in these kinds of tifo, they realized that's me. So it's a kind of unique name, and that's funny that people sometimes realize that's me.
They remember it.
Yeah, that's fun.
I love it. That's really great.
Well, thank you very much, Steffen. This was amazing.
Yes.
Like truly amazing. Great experience. Great to finally meet you and talk to you. We'll definitely keep in touch because this is too important to let it go. I think, like, I'm looking at both of you having from a Genoa, to what Matt was saying before, from being a Genoano, from Genova, and having in front of me two Genoani not from Genova is just like amazing. It's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I wanted to thank you very much, Steffen. If you want, you can reach out and tell people if they want to reach out to you and talk to you on social media. Where can they reach you?
Yeah, I think everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Yeah, always okay. Steffinho, you will find me.
Steffinho, we can find you, right?
Yeah. Thank you for being here, because I think that the podcast. I don't know. I have the feeling that podcasts came up, I don't know, 2 years ago with the pandemic. For me, it was if you don't go out, you listen to podcasts, politics, sports, and everything. And now, for me, as I said, that I'm only interested almost anymore in my teams and not in the whole football business. It's nice to hear almost every week now from you guys about Genoa in English. So hopefully I'm up to date listening to your podcast about my team in Italy. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's exactly what we want to hear, and that's the exact purpose of this podcast.
Exactly.
Thank you very much again, Steffen, for being our guest. It was our pleasure to have you with us. And Matt.
Yeah. No, ciao, Steffen. It was great to meet you. It's great to meet another Genoa supporter from across the world. And Forza Grifoni.
So thank you, everybody, for listening to us once again. We're back on track to be every week, and we'll hear and we'll talk to you and listen to us next week.
Ciao.
Ciao.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening, and see you next week.